Hello and welcome to the Love, Listen, Talk, Repeat podcast. I'm Wendy Capewell, your podcast host, as well as being a counsellor and psychotherapist, author and speaker. In each of these podcast episodes, I'll be joined by various guests, sharing their expertise and experiences on different subjects. So let's get on with this week's show. I've got Helen Snape with me today. She's a relationship coach, speaker, and author. And I'm really excited about talking to her because we're going to talk about a subject that's so close to me and my life in the past. And I'm sure it's one that everybody has, most people have a problem with. But until we do that, I'm going to a little taster. Let's just introduce yourself, Helen. I'd like you to introduce yourself to the audience, Helen.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm a relationship coach. I wasn't always a relationship coach. I used to work in human resources and training for a long time. And several people suggested to me, like, oh, have you thought of becoming a coach? And I ignored them for quite a while because I was like, no, I am doing my HR thing. But eventually the message kind of got through. And when I had the opportunity, I quit my job and I went and trained in transformational coaching with a view to being an HR consultant and doing a bit of consulting and mediation and coaching. But as you probably know, when you do these sorts of courses, you go on a process of self-development. And I kind of realized that wasn't where my passion was. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, for the rest of my life, it needs to be about something that I'm absolutely passionate about. And what was that? Well, for me, it's helping women that struggle in a way that I was really struggling with until about 5 years ago. I would describe myself as a recovering people pleaser. And so that's who I aim to help, people that give and give and give, like too much for their own good. So they end up exhausting themselves and getting really tired and overwhelmed. And it can affect every area of your life.
Definitely.
I mean, for me, it led to me burning out at work, and then also getting into what turned out to be an abusive marriage and staying in that for far, far too long. So it affects like every area of your life, and it sucks, but you don't know any other way of being. So I remember being in that space and I would just try harder and harder because I didn't know any other way. And it was really, it wasn't until I hit my own rock bottom, when I was like, right, universe, I give up. I don't know how to do life. Everything is crazy. I can't do this. I've got to find a different way. And that's where it really started for me. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah. And I can identify with it so much because that was me. Started in childhood. And for me, it was my mother just wasn't connected. I couldn't connect with her. I think there wasn't a real bond with her. And she would go into extreme sulks. And I would be begging her, what have I done wrong? What's wrong? What am I, and I don't understand what's wrong, Mummy. Tell me what I've done wrong. But she wouldn't. And so I was at loss to know how I was supposed to behave. And my dad, on the other hand, he was quieter, but the way it affected me with him, because of him, was because he would say, Wendy, and I would look around wondering what it was he was telling me off for. And I remember specifically one of his friends saying, why did you stop her? And he said, she hasn't, you know, she hasn't done anything. And he said, I know what she was going to do.
Wow.
So I had no thoughts in my mind. I wanted to go and join in with the other children. So it left me, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And my mother would say, it's no good being sorry now. I used to think, well, when am I supposed to be sorry? You know, I can't be sorry if beforehand, because I'll be told off for being cheeky. So it left me a very confused child. But then if you're trying to please everybody, and you're trying, because the reason we do it in my mind is that we need that attachment as children. We need to feel that attachment to our parents. And so we stop being authentic, because the attachment is so much more important to us as children than being ourselves. Because if we are ourselves, we're likely to be rejected. So that's for me where it started, but it continued all through my life, as I'm sure you found out as well. And it affects so much of our lives, as you say.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Yeah, it definitely started in childhood, and I think it's still something that I'm working through, where exactly it came from, because I know for some people they can really point to particular things that happened in their life, or, you know, if they grew up in an abusive home, or they had an alcoholic parent or something, and they kind of got into codependent type behaviors, you know, of which people pleasing is an aspect. Whereas for other people, it's harder to unpick. And I don't necessarily think like you absolutely have to, because, you know, you can see the patterns playing out in your life. But I do remember, you know, desperately wanting to fit in. And I remember I just didn't feel the love that I knew my parents had for me. So whether there was just a lack of attunement, I'm still figuring that out. But I didn't feel it. And of course, I then felt bad that I didn't feel it, because I knew intellectually how much they loved me. I couldn't feel it. And so I felt empty inside. And so I felt that I often hear it from people, is just this feeling of there's never enough.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I was so, I guess, attached to my thoughts. I thought this was all true. You know, I thought, oh, I am empty inside, and, you know, there must be something wrong with me. I can't feel this love. And I had the most massive inner critic ever that would tell me all these horrible things about myself. And so I would like desperately try and fit in with other people, so that I could get some love and attention that I could actually feel.
Yes, and the same for me. I was always trying to fit in at school, trying to fit in at work, trying to fit in friends, fit in, and I always felt I was only outside somewhere. I never felt part of it. But as you say, you know, you try harder at work, you tried harder with friends, you try harder in relationships, you pick the wrong people, because you need that love and attention. But actually, that attachment we needed as a child is no longer there. We need to be more authentic. But finding ourselves is so hard, isn't it? Because I didn't know who I was. I don't know how it left you, Helen.
Yeah, I think I remember when I went to university that I thought this is like an opportunity to almost like start afresh, discover who I am. And I think it kind of started off quite well.
Yeah.
But that's also where I met my future husband, who turned out to be a controlling narcissist. And so I very quickly began to lose myself in that relationship. I didn't, and because I was so desperate for love and attention, I wasn't asking questions that I would now know to ask, like, is this relationship good for me? How am I feeling when I am with this person compared to when I'm not with them? I was just, he dazzled me with this amazing attention. He did the love bombing thing. And so I felt on top of the world, and I felt like I'd got this love and attention that I'd been looking for. So I got sucked in that way. And then, I was not in touch with who I was at all. And I kind of thought that was a good thing because I thought it was making me like really unselfish. I thought it was really good that I focused on other people and their happiness, and that made me a good person. And okay, I knew I didn't really know how to love myself, but I thought, well, if I love other people and I do my best to love God, because I was quite a committed Christian at that point, then surely eventually I'll feel this love that I'm missing. And it didn't really work.
No. And I for me, I had this constant feeling of anxiety because I was always not sure whether I was doing the right thing. I don't know if you felt like that. Kind of, well, do they like me? Am I fitting in? Do I need to do something different? And I think I got bullied, probably because I allowed myself to be bullied. But it was that, it was, I would do not anything to fit in, but I did do some silly things in my life, that's for sure, and not sensible ways of behaving. But I just felt I wanted to fit in, and so I probably didn't make the best choices. But I really did feel that anxiety of constantly wondering, well, will I be invited out? Will I be included in this? Will I be invited to the party? Why haven't I got a boyfriend? Everybody else, she's more likable than me. Why is she more likable than me? That was my early teens. I remember very much so. So it was that constant anxiety that I felt.
Yeah, looking back, I would say I was anxious. I think I was also quite depressed in a way as well. I mean, I felt an immense sadness inside of me because of that emptiness. But then on top of that, I had the kind of the often racing thoughts of, am I doing the right thing? And oh gosh, what is this person thinking of me? Like, I was always so worried about what other people thought about me or what they felt about me. Like, I guess like my attention was always on other people, monitoring what was going on with them, and not turned towards myself at all. Because I thought that was selfish.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sense of I've got to be there for other people. And it is so much of making sure, I was constantly checking, am I doing the right thing? When I got married, when I had children, it was, am I a good enough mother? Am I a good enough wife? Am I doing the right thing? I'm just comparing myself to just about everybody around me, other mums, other wives, other people around me. Even in jobs, I was constantly checking, and I think I probably wasn't very nice to be around, because I was that kind of not very that there's something about that anxiety that people they want to shake you off somehow, just get off. Or there was around, otherwise I protected myself and I became quite cold. When I felt unsure of myself, I'd be quite cold and not let people in and have this view that I'm okay, I can do this, and that pretense. So I felt I seemed to go from one to another, either that real anxiety of, oh, I've got to suck up to you kind of feeling, which is horrible, or the other one of distance and I don't want to engage, I'm too scared to engage in case you find me out.
Yeah, I remember being surprised. We would do these team assessments at work, and where we would kind of give feedback on each other. And I remember being surprised that some of the feedback I got was that I was seen as quite aloof. Like people didn't really know me, and I thought, oh, that's really, I didn't understand that at the time. But of course now I can see, well, I was just kind of mirroring back to them what I thought they wanted. So of course they didn't really know who I was.
No.
And I was very hesitant about sharing anything real about myself. And of course that got worse because I was in this abusive marriage. So I absolutely didn't want to talk about what was going on in my marriage because it was upsetting. Like I didn't want to talk about it. So if anybody asked me any personal questions, then I would very skillfully bring it back to them. I would deflect, and then I would ask them a question. And I discovered that most people really like talking about themselves. And so I became a fantastic listener.
Yes. And I think in adulthood, it also shows up in other ways, doesn't it? The person, well, in work, especially, you never turn down if somebody says, can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah, of course I can do that. Or a friend, you're always worried that if you say, no, I can't make that chat, no, I can't see you, no, I can't do that, then people are just going to dislike us. And so we take on more and more, work stupid hours, get burnt out, as you said very early on in the conversation, and just feel so wretched. And that I still feel that at times that people still didn't like me, however hard I tried.
Yeah. So that's a common theme. I think that when we're in that space, we can give an awful lot at work, but it's not necessarily recognized or rewarded because there's no value almost to your yes, because people just know that you will take on whatever they ask of you. And so there's no kind of value attached to it. It's like, well, she'll just do it.
Yeah, one I very much recognize that well, yes, she'll do it, and that was it. So what kind of thoughts do you have about people saying no? Because people hate saying no. If I say to a client, well, what does saying no to you mean? And they kind of, you can always see the panic on their faces. I can't. So what strategies do you come up with for women?
I think for me, it's almost like working on 3 different levels. So one is kind of almost like the surface level of, okay, I've got this situation, maybe with my boss or with my partner, and I don't want to do something. I don't know how to talk to them about it. So you can kind of deal with it on that level of, okay, well, what could you say? How would you feel? Like, what might the outcomes be of what you do? And you can work on it on that level. Then secondly, you can work on it on the level of looking at what boundaries we need in different areas of our life. Like what is okay for us, what's not okay for us, and where we need to build those up. And then thirdly, for me, it really is about the relationship that we have with ourselves at a fundamental level. Because if I think that I am worthy and worthy of protecting and taking care of, I truly believe that, and I feel good about myself, then that is a basis for me protecting that with my no. Whereas if I don't feel that, I don't feel worthy, I feel rubbish about myself, then it's very hard to give a confident no to somebody else.
Yes. I think that is probably the most fundamental part, isn't it? Or the basis. First of all, I'd say it was awareness. What am I how am I behaving? Because I find that people don't always come to me in that way. They might say, I'm struggling with confidence or self-esteem, or I'm struggling with this issue. And then as the story unfolds and okay. So yes, how do you feel about yourself? And so many people, I don't like myself. I don't like myself. And how can I love myself? It seems a stretch too far, because I'm unlovable. So if other people don't love me, how can I love myself?
Yeah.
And
it's such a tender, painful place to go. And certainly at the beginning of my journey, I wouldn't have said that was my issue. I wouldn't have admitted to it. I knew that I needed to be more assertive, and I knew that I needed to do relationships differently, but it was probably too painful a place to say, actually, my issue is that I don't love myself. So it was kind of a journey to get to that point, to admit that, and then begin to address it in a way that actually worked. Because I tried stuff in the past and just hadn't worked for me.
And I think sometimes, you're right. And in conversation, I find that, and someone will say, but for example, I had a client recently. My mum is so demanding of me. She's so selfish. She can't do anything. She expects me to do everything for her. And there's a resentment there. And okay, so what would it feel like if you said you couldn't do that? Oh, she'll throw herself into a temper. She'll get angry or annoyed, or she won't talk to me and think, okay, but why are you taking on your mum's stuff? This is mum. If she wants to act like, and you obviously have to build a rapport with somebody before you say this. Why is your mum acting like a toddler? We're having a tantrum. And what would you do if one of your children did that? Or, and I think it's that realization that it's not me.
There's often that taking responsibility for other people's feelings. So, and that's such a big thing, and just letting go of that responsibility is amazingly powerful.
Isn't it just? It is. And how I can't upset them. I can't let them down. And hold on a minute. Where's your responsibility? People feel like they're responsible for absolutely everybody else and everything else in their lives. But I mean, there is a very well-worn saying, you can't pour from an empty vessel. And if we're completely empty, we've got nothing else to give. How can we give to anybody else?
And I remember really wanting to give in order to get something back, which isn't a great space to be in. I now understand about filling up my own cup, and then I can give from the overflow of that, and that feels good, and then it means it doesn't deplete me as well. but the basis of that is taking care of myself and loving myself to start with. Yeah.
Takes a while to get in that place. I think you'll agree. So
Yes.
It's not overnight. And the one thing I'd suggest to people is it's easier to say no to people where you have no emotional attachment. So starting there by saying to, I don't know, whoever it is, just saying no. Or you can find different ways of saying no, that's for sure. I'm sorry I'm not available then. However, I could do that another time, or I could give you that. And I think it is just starting at that furthest place of, I can stand up for myself. I can actually say, no, I don't want that. Or in some way, whether you're in a restaurant or whether you're in a shop or whatever that thing is, to be able to just stand up to somebody else, because standing up to a stranger is so much easier because there isn't that emotional attachment. I think once you can do that, then I encourage people to get closer into their relationship, because the closer and the most emotionally attached you are, more difficult it is to say those words and put those boundaries in, because they know us inside out. They know just which buttons to push, and we're going to feel that rejection so much harder. So yeah, that's my feeling, that starting on the outside, moving inwards gently.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember being so pleased with myself, something that most people would probably just do and without thinking about it. I remember going into a shop, and you know, nowadays they ask if you want an email receipt, they ask you for your email address. Yeah. And before I would just say yes, and I would give them my email address, even though I don't want them to email me. Whereas this one time I said, no, I'll just take the printed receipt. And it seems like such a small thing, but for me, that was a big deal. I was like, I said no, and I survived. And the clerk didn't shout at me or get upset with me. And I feel good about the fact that I'm now not going to have them emailing me. It was like small start, but build, as you say, like building from there, and then saying no to people that it maybe matters more with.
Yes. And I've got one phrase I use so often, is that when we say no to other people, we're saying yes to ourselves. And I think when we think about that we're taking care of ourselves, that self-care, I think that's when we realize, actually, I do count. I am worthwhile. I am worthy. Yeah. Wow. We could talk for ages. I know we could, Helen. Maybe we need to do another one at some point. But you've written some articles. You've got a free download on your website, and you've been contributed to books and so on, we were talking about earlier. And I know that you've got that book in your head. So yes, I think that's another one to kind of get out there at some point. But what is one thing that people can take away with them now? I put mine forward, but I just wonder what can you offer someone?
So for me, you know, a healthy relationship involves give and take, and we can't receive from other people until we learn to take that attention that we give to everybody else and turn it back to ourselves. So my one big suggestion is to start training your attention on yourself. Now, I'm a big fan of meditation, so that can be a great tool to help you learn to do that. But you don't even have to do that. Even if you make it a practice once a day, like it doesn't need to take like 5 minutes even, but just start asking yourself, how do I feel? what do I need? What do I think? So you're just learning to bring your attention back to yourself and becoming aware of your own thoughts, feelings, and needs so that you can then start to take care of them. Yeah.
Great advice. It's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really good advice. We could all do that more. Now, Helen, what's an easy way of people getting in touch with you? Because your details will be in the show notes, but an easy way for listeners.
Easiest way is via my website, which is helensnape.com.
Brilliant. And how we spell Snape, S-N-A-P-E.
As in Harry Potter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being my guest today. I've found it really interesting. I think we both shared parts of ourselves and how it's been for us, but hopefully others will maybe identify with that, and it might start thinking about how they want to be instead of how they are.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear from you and what you think, so do get in touch. If you'd like to learn more about me, how I help people who are struggling with issues relating to their personal life or relationships, as well as finding out how you can work with me, go to my website, www.wendykatewell.co.uk, where you can find my contact details and book a free call with me. You really don't have to struggle alone. Until next time, take care. Bye.